Hey, I'm Herald Sportswriter Manny Navarro here, joined once again by my comrade Andre Fernandez. We're here at Flanagan High School, where the Falcons are practicing, preparing for Saturday night's Class 8A state championship game at the Citrus Bowl. And Dre, we just had a nice long conversation with Devin Bush, a guy who grew up in Opelika and really a through and through Miami guy. Ends up going to Florida State, having a great career, wins a national championship, wins a Super Bowl with the Rams, and now he's looking for the ultimate trifecta, the state championship, with his son leading that team.
Well, he broke my heart and a lot of Canes fans back in '93. Still remember him, that pick six on Frank Costa back in '93. But he's not going to make me unhappy if they win on Saturday night because I'm happy for them. They've come a long way in 3 years, and they're right on the doorstep now. Let's see if they can finish it.
Well, they're taking on a Kissimmee Osceola team that, if you're a St. Thomas Aquinas football fan, you've heard of. They've made it to a couple of 7A state championship games in the past, and a tremendous rushing attack. They got a kid, fullback, who's headed to Virginia. Dre, you looked at the matchup. What do you think of this matchup?
I mean, the biggest key is that is how Flanagan's defense, which has been so phenomenal in these playoffs, handles that scheme, that flex bone offense. A lot of different options there. They're very similar to a Popka. You know, that Orlando area has a lot of these types of teams that run that type of offense. They've gathered, I think it's 5,400 yards as a team. They barely throw the ball. I mean, it's going to come down to just a discipline on the defensive side of the ball for Flanagan. They don't make mistakes, don't have any silly penalties, nothing after the whistle, mind their assignments perfectly. I think they'll come out on top because speed-wise, I think they have something that these guys haven't seen at Osceola. Osceola it's going to have the crowd element. They have the experience. This is the third year in a row that they at least make it to the Final Four. It'll be the second year in a row at state. But, I mean, if all things equal and Flanagan plays a clean game, I don't see them getting stopped.
Yeah, and we got a chance to talk to some of the offensive stars on camera earlier. You did, Cato Nelson, the quarterback who won a state championship at Champagnat, Driedrich Snelson, who won a state title, I think at Booker T and at American Heritage.
Actually, he's going for four because he started at Booker T with one, had the middle of his career with Heritage. Now he's hoping for this ring to add two if you put the Flanagan Falcon on it.
Yeah,
So.
and so he's getting a lot of experience. Though I brought my notes today, as I did last week, and
You look like a coach.
I do. Listen, I just wanted to talk a little about this Flanagan defense. I wanted to say some of these guys' names, and you look at the size. The biggest guy, Coach Bush and I were just talking about it, Dennis Jackson, 5'11", 265. That's the biggest guy on their defense. He's their nose guard, nose tackle. You look at their defensive end, Fabian Gordon. I know you said he made a lot of plays last week. 6 feet, 208. Jordan Eubank, 6 feet, 175. That's their front three. Okay, they run that 3-3-5 defense, and really it's all about speed with this Flanagan defense. Last week they gave up a field goal in the first half to Columbus. They've given up 2 field goals the whole season in the first half of games. That's what their defense has surrendered. So
Yeah.
I think the key for me in this game, Dre, is them coming out and playing that kind of defense once again. I think without question this could be a game that Flanagan wins and wins impressively.
Yeah, I mean, again, it sounds cliche, but the game might be won in the first quarter. I mean, it was last week to me. I mean, it was so huge just for them mentally, considering what happened last year against Columbus, for them to come out strong. I mean, Columbus was in the red zone twice. They were inside the 10 the second time, and coming off an interception that Cato threw, for them to come up with their own turnover, and really that second stop was huge. To stop them inside the 5, 3 running plays, Columbus gets nothing, settles for the field goal, then they respond. Cato takes them right down the field, 7-3. From that point on, you could just feel the momentum shift, the confidence they have in their defense. They weren't going to be stopped. At 13-3, and then later on that quick touchdown pass he hit Snelson with, I was on the sideline telling people the game was over, and some guys were looking at me like I was crazy, that there's still a whole second half, but I've seen this Flanagan team, and I've seen what they can do with a lead, and if they get it on Saturday night, it's going to be real hard for Osceola to come back.
Well, one of the 2 teams that was able to figure out Flanagan, St. Thomas Aquinas, they get back to the state championship game, 8th time in 11 years, or 9th time in 12 years now, I think, for Aquinas.
Yep.
And they get a chance to repeat as state champions. And you look at that team, Dre, their matchup, they're playing the Vieira Hawks, a 4-loss team, but a team that is battle-tested. They beat a really good Lake City Columbia team last week, and I think most people were surprised. At least some of the scouts I spoke to were surprised. What do you think of this matchup in the 7A championship game Friday night at the Citrus Bowl?
Well, if anything taught us last week, to not underestimate multiple loss teams, look at Booker T. So you never know. But I think physically and just the depth that St. Thomas has is something that Vieira might not have seen yet this season. Again, hats off to Aquinas. I asked Roger Harriet this week, I'm like, did anybody else get hurt? And honestly, it's a question you don't want to have to answer, but this year they keep losing key guys on defense and just keep having guys step up behind them. Coming up, the running game didn't do so hot as it had been the first 3 games. Well, guess what? Jake Allen threw a pair of touchdown passes. That's the thing with Aquinas. If they don't hit you with one thing, they're going to hit you with another. They're so loaded, it's hard to find a weakness on that team anywhere on the field. And I just think they have too much for Vieira overall. I mean, if you look at them overall, Trey Nixon is a pretty good wide receiver for Vieira. They'll have to have him make plays to have any chance. But the depth of Aquinas, once again, I think comes into play.
Well, I'm looking at the schedule here for Vieira. They got a loss to Allen, Texas, one of the national powers. They lost to him 56-20. I think it was out there in Texas. Yeah. But then you look at some other teams. Lakeland Kathleen beat them 29-25. Cocoa 49-42, and then Palm Bay 40-35. Look, I'm not saying you judge a team simply on their history, but Booker T. Washington beat Cocoa in the playoffs, pretty much dominated them in the state semifinals 2 weeks ago, and St. Thomas absolutely crushed Booker T. They ended their 41-game winning streak to start the season. So if you want to measure it that way, maybe that's one way to do it.
I mean, you could play this team beat that team, but as our buddy David Feronis knows, you end up doing a big circle right back to the beginning, and you didn't really figure anything out.
Right.
But I mean, I just look at it that way. I just think the depth of this team. You look at the experience. You do have to factor some strength of schedule because St. Thomas's schedule has been, very tough. They didn't go out of state this year for the first time in years, but in county, in state, they played a lot of good teams, and that roster is just like, again, I say it again, quality. I mean, you look at it. I'm surprised, actually, taking a step back and looking big picture. This would only be the second time that they win back-to-back titles. That's amazing considering the amount of times that they've not only won championships been there. Yeah. And this is going to be, now when you look at it, this is going to be the third coach that they've had. Of course, obviously the legend George Smith. Then you had Rocco Casulo. Now Roger Harriet, this is his chance to lead his alma mater to a state title.
And talk about some of the stars on that Aquinas team. I know you mentioned Jackson Kincaid last week, who's had a phenomenal season as a senior running back. His backup, James Charles, is going to FAU. You talk about Tyler Dunning, who's going to University of Miami commitment. He's a junior. Kevon Bennett.
For off-camera people, I'm pointing at Kevon Bennett's name because that's the one that's been repeated the most by Aquinas coaches. That kid has had a tremendous playoff run, and he's one of those guys that had to step up because they lost Bosa, then they lost his backup, R.J. Jean, to an injury, and he stepped in along with Colin Nace and a lot of those guys, and they've held the fort.
Yeah, it's really been about the defense and guys that have stepped up in that regard. Frank Coppett is going to Vandy. He's their starting safety, or one of the starting safeties back there. He makes a whole lot of plays. Like I said, Tyler Denning, Nicholas Benito, the super sophomore who transferred in from University School, great player. Yep. And then you go to the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you can talk about all the juniors. They're loaded with talented juniors, but like Jake Allen. But look, Michael Irvin's son, he's got a chance to win a state championship now, and I'm sure it's going to be cool to see Michael Irvin on the sidelines.
Oh, he'll be there.
He'll
he's going to be there.
He'll be there Friday night for sure against this Vieira team. All right, Dre, last but not least, let's talk about the Central Rockets, my team I like to call them because I've covered them 2 weeks in a row now. Last week.
Can I have my team back?
Yeah, you can have them back this week. We'll share them this week.
All right.
They play Saturday afternoon, and this is probably of the 3 games, you and I agree, this is the toughest opponent. Part of that is familiarity. Coach Sean Callahan with Armwood. I mean, this is the 4th time in 5 years that Central and Armwood are meeting in the 6A final. Dre, this team, they look better on paper than they have in the past.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of it too, it's just different with Central because even Roland Smith will tell you, they don't have, on offense at least, they don't have that real marquee guy that will just take over the game. And that was part of their identity for 5 years. It was part of their identity the previous 3 times that they played Armwood, if you even go back to 2011, but especially the last 2 years. We saw Dalvin Cook destroy Armwood 2 years ago. We saw Anthony Jones take over the game in the 4th quarter last year. Who's going to be that guy on Saturday afternoon that can elevate that team, carry them to a 4th state championship? We'll see. Maybe it's a collective effort. That's what it's been in the playoffs this year.
My money is on Gerard Thomas, and most people forget he was the starting quarterback on last year's state championship team, and he was just sort of a forgotten man because you had Anthony Jones, you had other weapons on that team, but now really these last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, Andre, he's been phenomenal. Since he kind of got the starting job back after the Carroll City loss, 14 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's thrown for 1,400 yards, and so this guy's making plays with his arm, and he's got a bunch of no-names at receiver stepping up.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, Kamani Carter had a tremendous game last week. I mean, he took over that game against Naples. Trayvon Brinson is another one. The superstar is Darnell Solomon, and he's finally coming into his own now in the playoffs. He's been versatile, kind of under the radar this year statistically. Hasn't put up the numbers that he did at Champagnat, but it's still a kid with that kind of talent. can't be discounted on the football field. He can make some plays on Saturday. That helps as well.
Yeah, and I think the key for Central, just like it is for a lot of these teams, like St. Thomas and Flanagan, don't fall behind early. Don't create the turnovers. Don't put yourself in a game that you should win.
Not.
And I think this Central defense is still really special. Yeah, they've given up 20-something points the last couple of weeks, but I can tell you, having been there, most of them have been because of the offensive mistakes. A bad snap on a punt over the punter's head, puts the ball on the 9-yard line. Naples ends up scoring a couple plays later. The week before that against Daytona Beach Mainland, same situation. Bad snap, fumble. That leads to great field position. So I think as long as Central protects the football, they should beat Armwood.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and on defense, the thing I would worry about is this kid, Darian McNeil, on the quarterback for Armwood. A lot of the Tampa writers from this Monday's press conference were saying this kid seems like he has even better grasp of the offense than their quarterback the last 2 years, Noah Johnson, did. So that's going to be that much more dangerous for that Central defense. But those guys have seen it all, done it all, here, there, Orlando, you name it. They're ready for anything. One more good effort gets them another ring.
Yeah, 6 consecutive trip. Only 2 other schools have done it. Pahokee and Glade Central have played in 6 consecutive state championship games. So history already made. They're going for a 4th ring in a row. The Rockets are. Yep. Andre, I'm excited. You and I enjoy this trip every single year to the Citrus Bowl, and it seems like every year there's more and more teams going to represent Dade and Broward.
Well, we'll leave it on this note. How about South Florida dominance? That if the 3 teams get it done, this would be 4 years in a row with at least 4 state championships from Dade or Broward. I mean,
amazing.
And I don't think a lot. Maybe any area nationwide can boast the way these 2 counties can.
Pretty soon you and I are going to have to start judging the celebrations. Who has the most fun? I don't know how we change things up.
Yep.
All right, for Andre Fernandez, I'm Manny Navarro. Be sure to follow us on Twitter this week. We'll be up at the Citrus Bowl providing all the action along with Bill Daly, David Ferrones, our correspondents, and Justin Aspiazu. We'll be shooting film of the game. Stay tuned to MiamiHerald.com. All the coverage will be there.